Presenting our podcast, Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context, brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Say hello to your hosts, Gear and Sahil.
Think about milk for a second. It's such a staple, right, in your coffee, your cereal. But have you ever really stopped to think about the journey it takes, especially from small farms in places like rural India? For millions there, dairy farming isn't just a job. It's everything, their livelihood. But it's tough, really tough, especially when that intense summer heat hits. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack some fascinating findings from a study called Doodh Darpan. That means milk mirror. It was run by a company, Shunya Agritech, looking at a really innovative feed solution. And honestly, you might be surprised by what they found. How simple nutritional tweaks can massively impact milk, the quality, the quantity, and crucially, the farmer's income. And get that, they did the study right in the middle of peak summer heat, May 2025, in rural Uttar Pradesh.
Exactly. And the Indian dairy sector, it really relies on these smallholder farmers. So their success is critical. Issues like animal nutrition, heat stress, they have huge ripple effects. What this study looks at is a potential game changer. A hydroponically grown feed. Precision irrigated, totally chemical-free. It's designed to tackle those core challenges head-on.
Okay, so let's really unpack this problem Shunya Agritech was trying to solve. The sources are pretty clear that traditional feeding in rural India, it often falls short nutritionally. We're talking diets heavy on dry fodder, maybe some commercial concentrates, but often not the best quality stuff. And then you add the summer heat, peak summer. Forage quality just drops. And the heat itself actually messes with the animal's digestion, their rumen function.
Right, the rumen is basically their specialized stomach, essential for breaking down tough plants. If that's not working well,
then their whole system is off.
Yeah.
Productivity tanks. And we're talking temperatures over 38 Celsius, common in Uttar Pradesh in May. That puts immense stress on the animals. You see drops in milk, both how much and how good it is.
And that's why it matters so much. It directly hits the wallets of millions of smallholder farmers. For so many, dairy is the main income source, maybe the only one. So if the animals suffer, the families suffer. It's that simple. This is where the idea of hydroponic feed comes in. It offers a reliable, consistent source of high-nutrient, chemical-free fodder, regardless of, soil issues or crazy weather like those heat waves.
So this potential solution comes from Shunya Agritech. They're an agritech company focused specifically on dairy in rural India. Their whole mission is about tackling what they see as a huge under-addressed problem: poor livestock nutrition. They want to boost productivity and income for farmers with better nutrition that's actually affordable and accessible. And the product itself is called Nutri Ankurit feed, or NAF. It's basically freshly sprouted green fodder grown hydroponically using Shunya's own methods. So what's good about it? Well, it's packed with nutrients, easy to digest, and importantly, it's got high moisture content.
Which is critical during those hot summers, right? For hydration.
Exactly. So it's ideal for boosting milk yield, fat content, even animal immunity, especially when they're stressed by the weather. And they deliver it through a subscription, kind of a fodder-as-a-service model, makes it steady for the farmers.
And to really test NAF's impact, the Doodh Darpan study was designed very carefully, scientifically rigorous. It was what we call a controlled Pre-Post Comparative A field study, basically tracking and comparing outcomes meticulously. They conducted it in 6 villages in Ghatampur block, that's in Kanpur Nagar district, Uttar Pradesh, ran from May 2nd to 25th, 2025. They set up 2 groups. Cohort A, the test group, had 10 buffaloes, the main dairy animals there. They started on traditional feed for a baseline, then switched to NAF. Cohort B was the control group, 6 animals. They just stayed on their usual diet.
What was that usual diet like?
Local green forage, dry fodder, commercial concentrates, and also local stuff like choker, which is wheat bran, and call mustard oil cake. The study had 2 phases. Pre-NAF baseline, May 2nd to 9th. Then the NAF phase, May 9th to 25th, when the test group got the new feed.
And how did they track everything? Sounds complex. They used digital tools, collected data twice a day at milk collection centers. Over 650 separate milk sale records were tracked. Impressive. They measured milk quality, specifically fat and S&F percentages. S&F is solids, not fat. Also the actual amount of milk sold, and of course the farmer's income, both total revenue and net income after feed costs.
And critically, they validated every data point, used official milk sale receipts called purchase, or the machine records. These receipts show the exact fat and SNF, which determines the price the farmer gets. So the data integrity is really high.
Okay, so the setup was solid. Let's get to the results. This is where it gets really interesting, right? What happened with milk quality, especially the fat. The study showed something quite remarkable. The test group, the animals on AF, they saw a 5% improvement in average fat content. It went from 6.67% up to 7.00% after they introduced AMP. That's comparing the period May 9th, 24th to the baseline before that.
A 5% jump in fat is significant.
Definitely. And the control group, the ones on the regular diet.
Virtually no change. They stayed flat around 7.27%, 7.28%. Just noise, really.
Wow. What are the other quality measure? SNF. Solids, not fat.
For the NF group, SNF was very stable, barely moved, 8.73% to 8.75%. The control group saw a tiny, 1% increase, 8.14% to 8.26%. But as we'll see, that didn't really help them overall.
So that 5% fat increase in the NF group, what does that actually mean for the farmer?
It means more money per liter. Simple as that. In India, the milk price is heavily tied to fat content, so that 5% gain directly boosts their revenue. It's a tangible economic benefit. And the stable SNF in the NF group is also key. It shows the nutritional density held up, even under that extreme summer stress.
Unlike the control group, where even a slight SNF bump didn't matter much because... well, something else was happening.
Exactly, because their milk volume was dropping. The field feedback also consistently highlighted NF's positive impact on quality during the heat.
Okay, that 5% fat increase is genuinely impressive, especially fighting the heat. But what about the amount of milk? The quantity? Because farmers need yield, right? That volume is critical. Did NAV help maintain quantity, or did the heat still cause major drops like you'd normally expect?
This, I think, was maybe the most striking finding. We started calling it the shock absorber effect. The animals on NAF, their milk yield stayed incredibly stable. They only saw a tiny 2% drop. That's like 50 milliliters per session.
Only 2% during peak summer heat.
Yes. They went from an average of 2.87 liters per session down to 2.82. Minimal. Now compare that to the control group. They saw a steep 15% decline in volume.
15%? That's huge.
It is. They dropped from 2.26 liters down to 1.92 liters per session. And that 15% volume loss, it just crushed their income potential, even if quality metrics held sort of steady. Volume is king in many ways.
It makes sense. You need the liters to sell.
Right. And remember, NF is moisture-rich. That likely helped, too, keeping the animals hydrated and resilient, like the official advisories recommend for summer. It acted as that buffer against the heat stress.
So NAF helped quality that fat increase, and crucially, it stabilized quantity, preventing that big drop. What did this mean for the farmers' pockets? The bottom line.
The financial impact was really clear. Let's break it down. First, milk revenue, just the income from selling milk. The NF group saw a 4% increase in average revenue per session, from 154 up to 160.
Okay, an increase despite the heat.
Yes. But the control group, they saw a 14% drop in revenue, from 127 down to 109. That reflects the volume loss.
Wow, quite a difference. But what about net income after you factor in the cost of the feed itself?
That's where it gets even more compelling. The NF group's net earnings revenue minus feed cost actually rose by 8%, went from 96.7 to 104.2 per session.
An 8% rise in net profit. How?
Two reasons. One, the higher milk revenue we just talked about. Two, farmers using NF were often able to reduce spending on other, more expensive traditional feeds.
Ah, so NAF potentially replaced some costlier inputs.
Exactly. It seems farmers felt confident enough to cut back on concentrates or call once they saw NF working. Now, the control group, their net earnings plummeted by 25%.
25%?
Yes, fell from 69.7 down to just 52.0 per session. Their volume dropped, but their feed costs stayed the same. A really tough situation.
An 8% net gain per session for the NAV group?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good daily, but what does it add up to, like over a year?
Well, if you extrapolate that, it's potentially transformative. That daily gain translates to an estimated annual gain of around 6,000 euros per animal for the NAF group, just based on the summer period. And the researchers estimated that post-summer, when yields naturally recover a bit, the annual benefit could potentially reach that 10,000 euros per animal.
Per animal?
Per animal per year. And when you compare the two groups, the estimated annual net income gap between an F-fed animal and a traditionally fed one could be somewhere between 18,000 and 20,000.
That is a massive difference for a smallholder farmer.
It really is. It underlines NAF's potential, not just as a nutritional boost, but as an economic replacement for some of those costly traditional supplements.
Did the study find anything else? Maybe some groups benefited more than others?
Yes, there were some interesting sub-cohort observations. Quite surprising, actually. It seemed the most significant gains, the biggest improvements were seen in older animals.
Older ones. Like how old?
Around 8 years old, roughly. And also those that had calved multiple times, maybe 3 or 4 times.
That is surprising. Usually you might expect younger animals to respond best.
Exactly. But this suggests that a better nutritional profile, like NAF provides, might be particularly helpful for older animals who might be more nutritionally stressed or less resilient on a standard diet. It could change how farmers view and manage their older, experienced livestock.
That's a really interesting angle.
And it also reinforces the economic point. The farmers who really cut back on expensive concentrates and call after starting NAF, they showed the strongest gains in net income. It really backs up the idea of NAF as an economic substitute.
Okay, so the results are compelling, but, every study has its limits. It's important to acknowledge those, right?
Yeah.
What did the report say about limitations?
Absolutely. Good science acknowledges its boundaries. This wasn't about weaknesses, but more about framing the findings and guiding future research. So one thing they noted was potential variability from hand milking, though they tried to mitigate that with the study design and using calibrated digital analyzers for testing the milk.
Okay, what else?
Sample size. While having over 650 records is pretty robust for a field trial in one district over, 23 days.
Why?
Larger studies across multiple states would obviously give even more statistical power and make the findings more generalizable.
Makes sense. It was focused geographically too, wasn't it?
Yes, conducted in just one agroclimatic zone in Uttar Pradesh. So future research definitely needs to look at different regions, different climates, and relate it to sample size. While the overall trends were clear, the test group size was a bit small to say every observation reached full statistical significance on its own. But the directional insights, they're very strong. They provide a really solid foundation for bigger, broader studies down the line, different seasons, different weather extremes.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. The Doodh Darpan study gives us a powerful glimpse into how a targeted feed solution, like Shunya Agritech's Nutri feed, can make a real difference, improving milk quality, that 5% fat boost, stabilizing quantity, preventing that big 15% drop during heat stress, and ultimately boosting net income for smallholder dairy farmers by a significant 8%. Those are the real aha moments here.
They really are. And it leads you to think, doesn't it? Consider the ripple effects. If innovations like this, driven by local needs and verified by data, become more widespread, what could that mean? Not just for farmers in Uttar Pradesh, but for food security, for rural development, maybe even climate resilience in other parts of the world facing similar heat and nutritional challenges. It's definitely something to mull over.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context. Subscribe to the podcast. And a reminder, this episode was brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.